Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie and television discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined by Sean Kovacs.
My dumb partner thinks I'm the Flash.
And of course, Bruce Leslie.
I am a prickly pear with a penchant for perpetrating peculiar pranks primarily to pilfer and purloin precious possessions from pompous people.
That's a lot of alliteration. Isn't that what alliteration is? Or is it
just checking out the pop filter here, seeing if it works.
I bought a pop filter this week. It was $15. Kapow! Well, we are back yet again. And, well, if you remember last week, we talked and we said we were going to do Captain America 2, A Death Too Soon. And turns out that was a lot harder to find than we had originally anticipated.
Yeah, kind of a bummer there.
Thanks a lot, Marvel.
Here's the big thing, though, is what's hilarious is I'm the only one. I actually have a copy on DVD because I'm awesome like that, I guess. But Bruce was the one who just so blatantly was just like, no, that's what we're watching. Like he just he knew already. He was just like, oh yeah, we'll definitely be able to get that.
When we reviewed the first one, the second one was on YouTube, but those things change with time.
It's true. You gotta. Red Brown's not getting his paycheck there on YouTube, and he won't have any of it. So the fact that since we can't locate that and everything, we've decided that we're gonna run 2 episodes of Becker. Isn't that what this was? Oh, wait, no.
Well, there's a definite Becker link.
This is The Flash from 1990. And, Bruce, you said that this was some sort of a movie or something they put out on VHS for kids?
I think you might need to double-check the year, but I think in 1993 this was released as The Flash 2, Revenge of the Trickster, a VHS you could go purchase at your local Sam Goody and take home and watch.
I wish we had some hard numbers on how many of these things sold because but then again, that was back in the day when you rarely got television on VHS or anything. And when you started to kind of get that flow of television on VHS, I remember all those kind of stores and stuff blowing up and, the mall Suncoasts and all that kind of crap.
FYE.
And this is in that early phase where a show would get canceled and they would hope maybe you forgot it was a show and think you were actually getting a movie, because I'd gotten a couple of VHS rentals in the late 80s and early 90s that were like that.
So we will be talking about that today. But first up, boys, it's been a long time. But we have gotten ourselves an iTunes review, and it's a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
And it's by, there's no way I'm pronouncing this name. It's a lot of random letters, so we're just going to say, they really didn't, they thought that one through.
Nailed it.
But it's entitled, It's Not Monday Without Him.
Oh.
I've been listening to the show for almost 3 to 4 years now, and from week to week, they keep me wanting more. With a perfect blend of geek talk, laughs, and genuine movie insight, HMP is a must for any comic book movie fan. Simply delightful all around. Smiley face emoji, smiley face emoji, smiley face emoji.
Well, that's good. Thank you, Kaja Hutta Hutta Masakadaviz. That's pretty good.
It's not too bad, but thank you, and we would love anyone else. It's the toughest. We were talking about it just before we started rolling. It's almost impossible for little tiny podcasts because big giant corporations. But always reviewing and stuff, even if you're not a supporter over at Patreon, is always just a nice thing that you can do. And many of you have, and thank all of you who have done that in the past. But speaking of Patreon, guys, we have got a new supporter over at Patreon, Maggie Kitterman. Kitterman is a heck of a cop last name, isn't it?
It is, but her nickname, her HMP nickname, is going to be the Star Spangled Sister.
Ooh, the Star Spangled Sister. All right. Maggie, you have now been christened as... Oh, wait a minute. You forgot the tag to it, the forevermore or whatever.
I now hereby knight you with all the powers vested within me from the podcast community and the universe as a whole. Maggie Kitterman, your HMP nickname is now Star Spangled Sister.
Oh my gosh, that was fantastic. And we would like you to be just like Star Spangled Sister and join us over at patreon.com/HMP. You get the pre-show, post-show, and of course, the Dinger Zone. And we appreciate everyone who helps support this program, just like Maggie. All right, let's get into it. You know what I forgot to do today, boys? Cut a trailer. But anyone want to take a stab at giving a kind of something?
The Flash is fast. Yeah. Okay, let's do it.
All right. So this is Flash Season 1. We're going to be doing 2 different episodes. Which I forget which ones they are. It's like 20.
It's episodes 12 and 22. But what we're doing is the home video movie Flash 2: The Revenge of the Trickster.
What was the Flash 1 then?
It was just called The Flash. And it was the pilot, the 2 pilot episode.
Oh.
The 2-part pilot.
Okay, so all right, I get you. Okay. So this is with Mark Hamill as the Trickster, who's actually going to be coming back to, kind of the DC thing or something on television not too long, right?
I mean, he's already been on The Flash on the CW as the Trickster more than once.
Okay. I mean, like I said, I haven't watched Flash in like 2 years, so I'm just like, was that a thing at some point? I heard something about it. I was like, I don't even know if it happened at this point because I haven't watched Flash in forever, but cool.
Yeah, interestingly enough, in one of the crossover events, I don't know, I think it was the one the year before last, might have been last year, I can't remember, but he played the Trickster on the same universe where John Wesley Shipp was still the Flash.
All that stuff. There's so much. Yeah. I mean, man, I can't believe when we started this show, we're like, there's no way that we'll just have, enough there's so much content we can't even watch it all. So that's insane. But okay, let's get into this episode. Bruce, do you have kind of a rundown? Do you want to kind of go step by step, or what made you, kind of choose this as what we would
How about
watch?
We go with the comic book?
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, I was kind of curious there.
It's time for Bruce's comic book connection.
See, I gotta have the trailer. If I don't have the trailer, it throws all the rhythm off because it goes trailer and this one and that one. For sure. No. I'm saying it is my fault because I didn't do the trailer.
Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Tight pants Tony at it again.
Oh, boy.
Well, dear listeners, you may think you know a lot about the Trickster, but did you know James Jesse wasn't his given name? That's right. Clutch those pearls, ladies, because I have a shocker for you. His given name at birth was Giovanni Giuseppe. That is, of course, according to John Broome and Carmine Infantino, the men who created the character who first appeared in Flash Comics in 1960. Giuseppe started using the name James Jesse to further his career as a circus acrobat. Just think if Dick Grayson had changed his name, how much further his career could have gone. Also, Giuseppe created shoes that allowed him to walk on air to help him in the trapeze shows that his family was in, because every member of his family was a trapeze expert. And wow, I'm starting to think this is like an amalgam character that combined Robin and the Joker. Just think about it. The color scheme works. Well, in addition to being an acrobat, let's look at his preferred methods of attack here. Itching powder, potato head bombs, exploding rubber chickens and yo-yos, sharpened jacks, hard shell candy, and various other joke-themed weapons. And don't you dare forget those shoes I already mentioned, because those shoes allow him to fly for up to 10 hours, which is handy when you're battling superheroes. But before we move forward, let's look back. There was a military comic published by Quality Comics called Blackhawks. Bill Finger wrote for this comic, and Dick Dillon penciled them. In 1959, DC acquired this book, and in 1960, the team faced an unknown enemy dressed as a stage magician, looking surprisingly similar to King Feature's longtime character Mandrake the Magician. The identity of this foe was never formally revealed in the pages of Blackhawks, but a sort of gentleman's agreement between Carmine Infantino and Dick Dillon has always led to this being unofficially the first appearance of James Jesse in a magician's disguise before discovering his true criminal identity as the Trickster. Now, this is something only someone with an inside understanding of early Silver Age comics would know, someone like Howard Chaykin, perhaps. But I'll save that for the main show for proper discussion. Now, the Trickster has been drawn many ways, most famously, I suppose, by Carmine Infantino, who made him look like a very childlike prankster. Then in the 90s, Howard Porter drew him in a way that would make him look very much at home as a member of Rob Liefeld's X-Force. He seriously drew him to look like a younger version of Gideon, a character whose first appearance is very much overshadowed by occurring in the same issue as Deadpool's first appearance. We've all seen Gideon, but we were all looking at Deadpool. Now, it probably goes without saying, but personally I prefer Infantino's version, but that's probably like saying I prefer a song sung by Frank Sinatra to the same song sung by Justin Guarini. Now, they're both super talented guys, but one has a timeless mystique around him, and the other is Little Sweet of Dr. Pepper fame. But back to the Trickster. In his first appearance, his Harlequin costume causes the Flash to suspect that he performs in a circus, and Flash captures the Trickster by racing his getaway pogo stick to the trapeze. The Trickster then gets locked up and disappears for a long time. After Barry Allen's death in Crisis on Infinite Earths, and I'm sorry for spoiling this 33-year-old comic, but Supergirl bites the big one too. But after Barry dies, the Trickster moves out to Hollywood and gets a job working in the art department on movies because they'll hire just any guy off the street for that job, apparently. Now, he gets up to no good again, and he tries to steal Dan Cassidy's innovative Blue Devil suit. I mention this for two reasons. One, as a proud owner of Blue Devil #1, I want the demand for the character to increase and make me a wealthy man. And two, because Blue Devil defeats him, proving Blue Devil may be the greatest hero of all time. You guys should look for those #1 comics for sale on eBay. Now, as hard as it may be to believe, Blue Devil and James Jesse grew to become friends over time. When Cassidy became trapped in the suit, Jesse felt empathy toward him and grew to rely on Cassidy as well to help him with his sporadic efforts to give up supervillainy. When Mark Waid wrote Underworld Unleashed, which was drawn by the aforementioned Howard Porter, the Trickster tried his hand at being a hero and snuck into Neron's domain, only to find the demon expecting him. Neron used his devilish persuasion and vague promises to lure Trickster back to the dark side, but at the end, Trickster stood up to his evil lord, much like Darth Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi, and with the help of Captain Marvel, being, of course, the Shazam version, not the Carol Danvers version, he defeated the devil and his evil plan to recreate hell on Earth. After the affair was over, the Trickster was terribly bummed that no one had witnessed his grand heroics, and no one in their right mind would believe his crazy tale if he told it. He did, however, know it was time to work on the side of the angels, because if he went to hell, he was pretty certain his reception would not be a welcome one. He began using his con artist skills for good and collecting the weapons of incarcerated supervillains because such things were too dangerous to be left lying around. The Trickster defeated Necron a second time in the tiny Himalayan kingdom of Zutan, which is absolutely not a fictionalized version of the Himalayan kingdom of Bhutan. And when he returned to the States, the Trickster was recruited by the FBI and continued to help battle his former allies, the Rogues, as they ran amok in Barry's extended absence. Kind of out of nowhere, in the Countdown series, Trickster starts to make a lot of homophobic jokes, something he's never done before, and something that lets the reader know that maybe he's slipping back into evil. Oh, and also, he happens to be next to the Pied Piper the whole time he's doing this, just to give you some context of how edgy 90s comics were. But in a final act of redemption, Trickster tosses his body in front of a hail of bullets from a dead shot that were intended to strike the Pied Piper, atoning for his distasteful comments by saving his gay friend's life. This, of course, results in the death of James Jesse, but the legacy lived on as a misguided teenager named Axel Walker discovered all of James's old gadgets and became the new Trickster, until he met his match when Detective Chimp busted him for murder and sent him to prison. Of course,
you don't want that on your rap sheet.
This was around the time Detective Chimp had Dr. Fate's helmet, and boy, do I hope that's a movie we get to discuss someday.
What happened? I was arrested by Dr. Chimp or Detective Chimp.
Detective Chimp.
Oh,
he hasn't
man.
been to Chimp Medical School.
Not yet, he hasn't. Here is the IMDb plot synopsis for The Flash 2 Revenge of the Trickster. Every superhero has his nemesis, and this time, Flash has that murderous mischief maker, the Trickster. It's really great job there, guys.
So the first thing I want to talk about is just how great Mark Hamill looks in the mid 90s or early 90s.
Right? He looks really,
Yes.
really good. Now, granted, this is we're coming up on 30 years ago. This flick. So
We are. But I was surprised by just how young he looks because I remembered seeing this as a kid and knowing that it was Luke Skywalker and thinking, wow, he's grown up.
yeah, he looks a little bit older here. Yeah,
I mean, this is filmed about 6-7 years post Jedi.
Right.
So he has had a few years to age. But while I was watching this, I had those exact same thoughts you did, Sean. And then I had the sort of other thought that went along with it. And we had young Mark Hamill. You know, we had Star Wars. We had Corvette Summer. We had young Mark Hamill. And now we're getting old Mark Hamill. You know, he managed to come back with a couple of different projects now. He was in Kingsman. Of course, he was in Star Wars Episode 8. I guess he'll be in 9, too. But I'm starting to think we were really deprived of prime Mark Hamill. Like this guy that I'm seeing on screen here could have been doing a lot of stuff. Why were we deprived of prime Mark Hamill?
Well, he really did do just a boatload of voiceover work. I mean, he's been working as a voiceover guy for 30 years. I mean, basically anything after Star Wars, he is being a voiceover guy.
And I wonder why, man. I mean, he's good at it and he's great at it, and I'm happy that he did a lot of the voiceover work that he did. I just wonder why.
Well, he bathes in the river of ham. You know, I mean, he is over the top in just about everything he does, which works to a certain extent, and it especially works for something as, you know, as
look who you're talking to. Look who you're talking to. I appreciate
for
that.
Sure. For sure. Yes, the delta of the river ham goes by your house for sure.
Yeah,
but
that's
like
briny.
you know, I mean, for something like the Flash, which is basically just a filmed version of a stage play, you know, like he's perfect for that. But you know, you're not going to get any nuance or anything like that from this guy, unless there's a director going, we got to tone you down a little bit more, Mark. Mark, you got to come down a little bit more. Just because it's the way he is, and that's fine.
You gotta like I kept watching and thinking like if you're directing this, you know, and you wanted to make it more serious, you would have to go on a number level. You know, you just like, okay, what you're doing right now is an 8. I need you at a 4.
Right. I you know, like you hear all the time stories of like a director saying to an actor like, look, I need about 50% of what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
And Hamill is definitely one of those guys.
I think he should have spent a few years on TV. I think the medium that gave us such greats as Cousin Balky and Steve Urkel, they could have put good use to prime Mark Hamill for about 5 years.
You know what? That's not a horrible idea.
I would have been tuning in.
I don't know what it could be, but I don't not like that.
But anyway, I just feel like we were deprived of prime Mark Hamill, and I appreciate the voice acting, specifically all the work he did on Batman the Animated Series, which came after this. But just seeing how much fun he's having on screen and looking at him on screen, I feel like we were deprived of some of the best. It would have been very different from what he did in the beginning and what he's doing now. It would have been like this interesting second act, which the voice acting was the second act, so that's fine. But it just would have been cool. I felt like I missed out on something.
Have you ever seen that episode of Amazing Stories he's on?
No, maybe, probably. Which one is it? I've seen a lot of episodes, but I don't remember them all well.
Well, there's this one episode where Mark Hamill plays a guy who's basically like a hoarder as a kid, as a younger man.
Yeah.
And this like being tells him, hold on to everything you own. It will eventually make you rich. And he becomes a very old man through the course of the show, and he starts getting angry because all of these things that he's been toting around his entire life have not made him rich at all. And by the end, like, he has Action Comics #1, and so he sells that off, and he, you know, like, he becomes.
Yep, I do remember that.
Right. That and it's a really informed performance of who Mark Hamill is, because in the beginning of the show, he is over the top dramatic. Like young man Mark Hamill, and by the end he's over the top old man Mark Hamill, Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is you're getting one speed with Mark Hamill, and that speed is fine, but it is just the one speed.
He needs to be like the Sasha Mitchell that rushes in, steals a scene, and then rushes back out and let Patrick Duffy move the plot along.
For sure.
I loved that show. I really, really did.
I liked it up until, Sasha Mitchell misbehaved and then he wasn't on it anymore.
That was like way late seasons.
Oh, one of the two best shows that girl from My Two Dads has been on.
One of the two.
At least one of the two I can think of. Now, you had asked me earlier why I kind of leaned into this idea of the Flash 2. First off, the movie we had originally planned to cover, Captain America 2, A Death Too Soon, was pretty much a TV project. They were really trying to make a Captain America TV show happen, which killing him off in your second movie probably wasn't smart. I don't know. But this
is how you get life out of projects. You kill them.
Yeah, but this was the Flash 2, so it's kind of keeping, in that theme of a TV follow-up, and we've already covered the pilot, so it makes sense for us to cover this one. But specifically, I have what's the standard size for a headshot, like an 8x10, something like that?
Yeah.
Well, I have a framed up here on the wall. I'm looking at it while I'm talking right now. I have a nice framed photograph of John Wesley Shipp and Mark Hamill in costume as the Flash and the Trickster. And it was from March 2015. It's dated and everything. I got the nice little personalized autograph from John Wesley Shipp. Frame it, put it up there, look at it. And, you got that thing in the back of your head. It's probably not going to happen, but you got that thing like, I'm just going to know where this is just in case there's some scenario where I could get Mark Hamill to autograph the other side of that picture, because that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But also the tougher get. I've already decided $4,000. That's the most I can afford for Mark Hamill autograph on the Trickster when everybody else, is getting him to sign Live Long and Prosper on stuff. I'm going to get him to sign the Trickster.
He's gonna be like, you spent what on this again? Oh wow, okay, all right. This is what I signed
money.
For you.
He works hard. He can get what he wants.
Listen. I'm all for it. I'm not against it at all.
Look, it's one semester of college. One of my kids can sit out, take a gap year. Is that what they call it?
Yeah. Hey, listen. Discover the wild woods of the Western Mountains or whatever the crap. Just you'll be fine. And
there were a lot of headshots to choose from. You guys know how it goes at the convention scene, and you go and you pick out the photo and you buy it and you go take it to get it signed. And surprisingly, his bestseller was like Dawson's Creek stuff. Was he on Dawson's Creek, I guess? If I got the right show, I can't keep them all straight. Dawson's Creek and Seventh Heaven
Dawson's
and
Creek,
stuff like that.
Yeah. According to the IMDb.
Okay.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, I trust Adam on that one. I got this Trickster picture, and it was like looked like the least well-selling stack of pictures there. And when I got it, the person that gave the money to us like, oh, you got to ask him about that. He loves to talk about that.
What?
I was like, okay. So I went over and I was like, hey, I heard you like to talk about, the Trickster episodes. And it had this thing where it's like, you've seen somebody, let's say you saw him do a panel in Atlanta. Then you go to like Indianapolis and see him do a panel. And they're telling the same story, but because they're actors, it kind of seems spontaneous, but you also know it's canned and it's been told, and you can go on YouTube and see him tell the same story at a couple different places. So it had that feeling like he has told this story a lot, but it's not like the feeling of he's told it a lot and he's sick of telling it. It's like he likes to tell this story.
Yeah, no, I get that. I totally get that.
And, the story that he had to say was basically near the end of the movie, when he gets brainwashed, and I hate to jump ahead on the plot. I don't want to ruin this for people who expect a beat by beat coverage, but his story was when he got brainwashed by the Trickster and he got to run around with Mark Hamill trying to be as crazy and hammy as Mark Hamill is and like the corny jokes and stuff. He's like, he wished that the whole show could have just been that. He really enjoyed just like trying to out ridiculous Mark Hamill, which, not easy to do. He specifically liked the boots that he got to wear, but yeah, he really said the most fun he ever had doing that original Flash series was when he got to be evil with Mark Hamill.
He was on Dawson's Creek. You were correct, Adam, but his character's name was Mitch Leary on that show. I don't know who that is, but I never watched the show.
Now, if only I'd known that in 2015, I could have said, Mitch, is it really you?
83 episodes.
Whew.
That's a solid paycheck.
I was about to say he's getting a little residual money on that, or at least
You think he gets more residuals from Dawson's Creek or The Flash?
Dawson's Creek
for sure.
But he was top billed in The Flash, and we've given him at least $30 between us.
But he's got times 6 the episodes of Dawson's Creek.
Not to mention probably times 1,000 the distribution.
I like Bruce's idea that like we could walk up to John Wesley's ship and be like, "Look, I already gave you money."
I
bought The Flash too. So you and Hamill, you each owe me.
So what gives?
So have I told you guys my Flash high school story? Have I told you this yet?
Go ahead.
So I am at this girl's house that I really like a lot. I mean, I really like her, and I'm trying to impress her. And I'm there with, like it's like the school function where like we're getting like the high school yearbook together or something like that. It's like a dance. I don't even remember, quite honestly. But I'm there at her house. I'm in. Like, I've got it. Like, step 1, go to house. Nailed it. And we're going through whatever we need to go through to get stuff done, with whatever project we're working on. And she turns on the TV at her house. And there's probably, like 15 to 20 high school sophomores in the same room. And they're flipping through the channel and the Flash comes on. and I was like, I really want to see the Flash, but I can't say anything because high school is a lot different now than it was then. Like you could get a whole lot of crap for just wearing a Star Wars t-shirt back then. Like literally a t-shirt that says Star Wars on it. That's going to be picked on relentlessly. And so I don't say anything. I just keep my mouth shut, and they decide that they want to watch whatever other show is on, like probably The Real World or something like that. And so everybody's kind of watching it, and the entire time I'm getting more and more bummed out because I don't get to see the Flash.
Oh man, I was straight Bugle Boy shirts in 1990, so I didn't get beat up. Couldn't go wrong with Bugle Boy.
I couldn't tell you what I was wearing then, but I definitely know I wasn't wearing like Star Wars stuff. That wasn't until college where I was like, I don't care what people think anymore.
No, yep. And it wasn't that easy to come by back then either. Usually I had to save up proofs of purchase and send them in or something like that. Like
proofs of purchase.
Yeah, you like buy your Star Wars figures. You cut off the proofs of purchase.
He's over here talking about buying T-shirts with Kool-Aid points.
Yeah, SMH green stamps didn't have no Star Wars. You had to go with the proofs of purchase. You get like enough. You get enough of that C-3PO cereal, and you could get a Droids T-shirt.
It'd be the boss.
Talk about a lose-lose, man. Ooh. They were literally called C-3POs, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
And I'm not making this up. You cut off the proof of purchase, you send it in, they would send you a Droids T-shirt. But it took like 10 proofs of purchase or something. It wasn't like one and done. You had to eat a lot of that cereal.
And that cereal was awful.
I was about to say, I'm sure it was fantastic.
And sadly, the T-shirt doesn't fit anymore.
It tasted like really bad alphabets.
Yeah. Like it tasted like it was supposed to be sweet, but they didn't commit to it.
We don't want to be rotting these kids' teeth out.
Yeah. Oh, crispy critters were bad for that too. But this isn't the cereal podcast. That's a totally more successful one that doesn't talk about crispy critters either. So I'm going to just say the production design on this and just kind of the art direction that's going on here really caught my attention. Something I don't think I appreciated when we watched the pilot, but all the old cars there, and this is 1990. I gotta point this out, but it really caught my attention with all the like vintage cars that they're using.
Well, it's because this show has Batman envy. I mean, it's terrible Batman envy.
It's very clear that they appreciate Burton's good work on Batman. But also, I'm thinking, well, this is kind of doing the Batman the Animated Series thing where it's sort of in the past, but then you get futuristic stuff. And then I remember this is before Batman the Animated Series. And I think in a lot of ways, a lot of the aesthetic they did here on some level had to influence that a little bit. I mean, this is clearly influenced by Burton, but it adds its own flair to it. And it honestly sort of at times looks like a fusion, especially when you're looking at some of the color scheme that Trickster's using with his vehicles and his dress. It's like a fusion of Burton and Schumacher, but it works better than Schumacher.
It's got a lot of like Schumacher kind of lighting cues for sure.
But pre-Schumacher, I mean, we got to point out that a lot of these things I'm comparing it to are more well known than this show, but it predates Batman the Animated Series. It predates those 2 Schumacher movies.
And let's be frank, it's also, I feel, and this is something, again, that I didn't get really with the pilot, but over these 2 episodes and everything that kind of struck me more is that this show is very much like the 60s Batman in so many ways.
It is.
It is.
Into it.
It is, but I mean, it's definitely campy, and it has the upside. I mean, if we go through the beats a little bit better, there's some pretty direct parallels here in this episode, or this movie, this home movie. I want to keep referring to it as, but I don't know if those cues were elsewhere, or if it was just because this character, the Trickster, really lent itself to that. Maybe that's what makes this pairing of episodes such a fun movie.
Now, that's one thing that I want to say, like, going into this, it's interesting because The Flash, as it exists at this point, is a week-to-week television show on broadcast television. And it's doing what I can't really remember a lot of, like, 90s television, I'll be honest. I was a little bit too young to have that big of a breadth of knowledge of like, early 90s television. But
me too.
It feels like... I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's supposed to be where it is.
Just a couple things, I guess. I'm kind of feel bad that I didn't watch this show at all when it was out, because I should have. I think I was probably watching either Twin Peaks or America's Funniest Home Videos, something weird like that. In retrospect,
that's a large gap right there.
Yeah, was it a Friday night show though? I feel like it was going up against Twin Peaks or something.
Thursday night.
Okay. Ooh, TGIF, or no, that's Friday. Anyway, I feel bad that I didn't watch it when it was coming around the first time, because now that I do see it and I can appreciate it for a lot of things now, I also can't connect with what it would be like seeing it that first time. I don't have that nostalgic part, which might be good or might be bad. But sometimes when I watch an old show, I can say, man, this looks old now, but just the feeling I got when it didn't look old. I can kind of transgress back across time and grab a hold of that a little bit. And I can't do that with this show. And it kind of bums me, but I'm really liking this show. And I missed out by not watching it when it was out. And I think we missed out by not getting a couple more seasons of this.
Well,
it could have been something cool.
It's too expensive. They were never going to keep this thing going. And it had to be basically the most successful TV show on air for it to keep going.
Well, just as a matter of mathematics, I read they spent 6 weeks shooting time per episode for some of it, and that's not a TV schedule unless I'm way off.
They probably started that way and then ramped down from there because they have all the stage sets and everything else.
And there's like 20 some odd episodes in this whole season, so like that's a boatload of stuff. So
mathematically, if you're doing 6 week shoots, they're not take you 3 years to do a year. Yeah,
right. I mean, they probably start that way and then they're able to get it down to probably. By the end of this series, they're down to 2 weeks getting this show done.
And I think that I did read that these episodes were sort of filmed as a block in terms of filming, because Mark Hamill's around for both episodes. The lady detective, what was her name? Margaret or Marjorie? Maggie?
I know the actress's name is Joyce Heiser.
Is now the right time to talk about Joyce Heiser?
Sure.
But anyway, it might have been just these 2 episodes that had like a 6 week per episode shoot, because they do feel pretty special.
Now, IMDb does have it. IMDb does have the movie itself, which obviously comprises of the 2 episodes, directed only by one person, this Danny Bilson. So should be
written by Howard Chaykin.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Howard Chaykin, of course, a journeyman comic book writer, kind of a I don't know if protege is the right term, but he was definitely an apprentice at the very least of the great Gil Kane. And he knows, he actually knew Broom and Infantino. And he's the kind of person who would make that catch of introducing the Trickster as a magician before he becomes the Trickster, which is something nobody probably got. First of all, nobody probably remembered the Trickster. He hadn't been in comics for about 30 years until this show kind of gave him some rejuvenation. And then he came into some 90s comics. But furthermore, bringing in like this pseudo Joker, which is what he is.
Well, you were going to talk about Joyce Heiser.
Oh, yeah, man, you're getting me back on track. Joyce Heiser. You know how sometimes there's a movie that it's not necessarily anything special, but you kind of saw it at the right time and in the right circumstance.
You talk about just one of the guys.
That I'm just going to put it out here. Now, there's always a possibility, like when I was really young, I might have seen some movies when I was too young to know what I was seeing. But I'm pretty sure the first time I saw Chowder Buckets on film was just one of the guys. And you know the scene I'm talking about, Sean?
Yes, I do.
From the back of the room, it's like, amen. So because of that, I guess I like this actress a lot because of that, maybe.
Sure.
Young age, young time. There's plenty of other young, lovely actresses working around that time, but I always have like that fondness of the whole first time on film I saw Chowder Buckets thing with her. Like for years, I mean, even in my 30s, if I saw like a girl dressed up like a football player for Halloween, I had to calm down a little bit.
Well, the other part to this too, though, is that she hit the perfect time of 80s, like she's the perfect 80s girl.
Yeah.
And then she transitions from perfect 80s girl to perfect 90s, like tough chick, because she does both things and she does them both well. So that by the time she shows up on The Flash, you're like, oh man, why can't my girlfriend dress like her? Like that kind of thing.
How do you feel about Joyce Heiser there, Adam? Were you a big fan of just one of the guys, or is the age difference?
I have not seen that film, and I did not care for this woman at all. I'm just like, hello, Barry, why don't we shake you up a little bit here and let you see that Amanda Pays is right there in front of your face? What are you doing, son?
Well, you got to have the Sybil Shepherd, will they or won't they?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, this is prime moonlighting time.
Just smack you upside the head, dude. Hello.
When Joyce Heisey, is it Heisey?
Heiser.
When she gets into the prankster costume, does that even catch your attention a little bit, Adam?
It does. That wasn't bad.
Yeah, she definitely has me looking to see if I can order one of those online or something. But anyway, it was a good prankster costume that they had for her, or Prank was her name, not Prankster, Prank.
Well, she's not in the costume though.
Yes, she is. She is when she gets kidnapped near the end of the first episode.
Right.
Or the first half of this movie.
I was thinking about the other lady.
Yeah, it's not a competition, but I preferred
the other lady, the one that was, with them all.
The court reporter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Tina McGee. She is a character from the comics. She's more of a Wally West character. That's Amanda Pace, who she's playing here. Mm-hmm. This was a weird, sort of love triangle setup, especially since I'm not real familiar with the show. I didn't watch the show back then. I don't exactly know what the status was. The way that it was being presented as this movie starts, I'm just assuming that Barry and her are dating, they're having date night at home with a movie and popcorn and stuff. And then this other lady calls up and he goes to rescue her. And next thing you know, it's it's adult time. And that was all weird to me with Barry. I never thought of Barry as just the straight up cheating kind, or what you would call this. What was their relationship? Do either of you know the background on these characters? Is it just a will they or won't they? Or was it like we almost are going to, and then he gets sidetracked by a guest star?
I'm remembering it like this, is that they were colleagues because he's the Flash and she saves him. She basically makes the suit that he's wearing. Yeah. It saves him from friction, all of that jazz.
She's like Cisco and Caitlin wrapped into one.
She is, except for even cooler than Cisco, if you can believe it.
What?
Yeah, true.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, even cooler.
Oh, that's crazy.
And they and they don't really start hinting at, and I could be just remembering this wrong, but the way I'm remembering it is they are colleagues and they're friends and they look out for each other. But then throughout the 22 episode season or 24 episode season, by the end of that season, they're dating, I believe, but I'm not 100% sure.
And they didn't quite fridge her, but they definitely got rid of Iris in the pilot, right? They sent her to Paris or something.
Yes, she's gone.
Which is weird, but if Iris is around, then we're not even having this love triangle, right? He's just all about Iris.
5 seasons, Bruce. That's what this show's going to go for. 5 seasons. It's going to be that big. Have you seen Batman on Tim Burton's Batman? Oh, my, we're going to go forever.
They shipped her off to
that
Paris
is the thing
with
that
the
I
facts
wanted
of
to
life.
talk to you guys about, actually, because you had asked the question and I never got to answering it, which is that I watched it when it first came out. And when that pilot lands, it literally feels like you're watching superhero movies on your TV.
It really was crazy. I remember
it was
seeing
insane.
It. Yeah, it was really, really cool. It was like we just got something on television that in our little minds looked just like what we saw on Tim Burton's Batman.
Right. And it really was like you are living in a golden age, because there was nothing. If you can remember, there was no superhero anything anywhere.
No, not really.
And then Batman comes out, and it was like, yes, we finally got a superhero movie. And then the next year comes Flash, and it's almost like in your head, in your dumb kid head, you're like, well, this is basically the same thing, but with the Flash.
It's
and so it was amazing. And there were all of these women who were like 90s hot on the show. Yeah. And so you're like, oh my God, Amanda Pays is just the most beautiful lady in the world.
Even though she dresses like a shy librarian.
Doesn't matter.
But that was a type at the time.
Oh, absolutely.
And so
the English type.
Right.
So what we see English broad says.
So there's there's everything to recommend the show. And even as somebody who, like my dance card was pretty full in high school, I still would try to take the time to watch this stuff.
Yeah, and I'm bummed. Once again, you're just making me more bummed I missed it on the first time around, but I'm really appreciating it a lot now. Also, I was kind of surprised, wish I'd seen it the first time around to see if I would think it was edgy and cool or if it would have seemed out of place. But there's like the little chit chat he's having with Megan. I looked it up. That's the character's name, Megan. And she goes, "You mean you can even do that fast?" He goes, "Well, I guess I can." And she says, "Wow, think how much time that would save me." And I'm pretty sure that's dirty talk, right?
Here's the thing. Sure, yeah. There is so much dirty talk, innuendos going all over the place in these 2 episodes. It is fantastic. It is just so stupid. I love it.
I wasn't expecting that, but this did come on at 9:00, right? 9 or 10?
Yeah, 9:00.
Flash at night.
So... But that kind of caught me off guard. So I wondered if I would have thought that was like really cool back then, or if it would have seemed kind of weird to me back then or out of place. I don't know. But I wasn't expecting it. I didn't pick any of that stuff up in the pilot. And then there's another time when he's like tossing and turning and he's tired from running 150 miles, which it's nice back in the days when our superheroes weren't overpowered. 150 miles was something. Now the Flash would run to Jupiter and stuff and it wouldn't be a big deal. But, he's tossing and turning because as exhausted and sore as he is, he can't quit thinking about Megan upstairs. And then she comes down with the 90s. Well, it's really more of a late 80s carried over into the 90s classic of just wearing his like dress shirt as pajamas, which wins every time on television and movies. And they meet at the middle of the steps and kind of kiss. And she says, are you finished already? Like, that's another one. I wasn't expecting it to be that out there like that.
The shirt it works because it's just timeless. It
is timeless.
Gosh, it just works.
And then that's when about this time that Mark Hamill shows up in the FBI disguise.
First of all, these disguises are not bad.
Disguise is actually pretty darn good. It's the character he's playing is like even though if I don't know who you actually are underneath that, I know that's a disguise when you start. Honestly, he made me think of from Arrow, Paul Blackthorne, I think is his name. The guy that played Harry Dresden on that short-lived Dresden Files when he tries to do his cop accent on Arrow in the early seasons. He sounds a lot like this pseudo Columbo kind of thing we're getting out of Mark Hamill here.
But it's like that's what I was surprised with is that how good the actual kind of costuming and little makeup stuff was. But yeah, you're right. He broadcast it out like it's like okay, like you don't know, and the second the mouth opens, you're like, alrighty then. Well, we know where that's going.
And you know the mustache wasn't the most realistic looking.
Well,
but
twirling it didn't
later
help.
on. Later on, when he peels off the prosthetics, he peels off the nose, and you can tell a big difference right away. But he peels off the chin, and it looks like it's a prosthetic that is identical to his actual chin. Like you see him peeling something off, but it still looks exactly the same. It was funny to me.
I wonder how many people I wonder how many conversations they had on the show of what the tone of the show was. It seems like it goes back and forth, you know, like at times it's deadly serious. At times it's Mark Hamill pulling off a chin, you know, like it's kind of back and forth. Like, for instance, does anyone feel that the Mark Hamill character of the Trickster is really going to murder somebody?
No.
But this is coming from a tradition of network television where, you know, you're watching different strokes every week, and then out of nowhere they have the molester bicycle man, and then it's back to laughing every week. And, you know, you're watching like some other show, Punky Brewster, where it's just standard Punky Brewster fare. Then one day they have her a whole episode where she's hanging out with somebody that at the end they see the gravestone and that little girl died 13 years ago or something weird. Like TV did that a lot with the tone. And I think when Hamill and the Trickster are here, they said, you know what? Most of our show is gonna be our typical Flash, but we're going Adam West, Batman 66 once Hamill gets in costume, because it really, you feel that swing back and forth. And you mentioned Becker earlier, Adam.
Yes.
Was that intentional?
Of course it was.
Good. I didn't know if I was the only Becker fan amongst us. Are you a Becker fan there, Sean?
No, no. As a matter of fact, Becker was my go-to for a long time for if you're going to make fun of people watching TV, make fun of Becker.
Well, there was a point in my medical training when I was getting real cynical, and I think I enjoyed Becker at that point in time. I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool to just be in a situation where everything's so desperate you can just say what you think and go on with it. But yeah, I watched a little bit of Becker. But the guy, the reason we're talking about Becker, Sean,
okay, so 19. It's like,
I know. Look, even though I didn't watch the show, the guy is unique enough looking that I know that he was on the show.
But in 1998, I was in like high school, so you could imagine, you know, just the like, you know, hating everything and being all so into that. So yeah, of course, it's right up
the funny thing, Adam, and I don't know if you noticed this, but the first time he shows up on the screen, he has dark sunglasses on.
Yes.
And I started thinking, is this guy blind? Is he blind in everything? Because he was the blind guy in Becker. And I thought, what if this guy's really blind? And I didn't know that. But then, you know, later on, he doesn't have the sunglasses on. But that would have been just too perfect if he played a blind police detective.
I do feel like he's
right there.
I do feel like he's played another blind character at some point. I could be wrong. I feel like that's something that.
Well, I'm only familiar with two projects
else.
he's worked in, but he was blind in at least one of them.
So 50-50 so far.
Yeah, and Sean already referenced this at the top, but I do like how people start believing that this guy Murphy is the Flash.
Oh my gosh! It was
one person believes it.
He believes it so sincerely, and then Murphy decides to roll with it. I think.
Here's what I thought of watching this. Bruce would be the guy who just keeps on believing stuff goes on. You start this as a funny little bit. And, you know, everyone's having fun. Everyone's in on it, except for Bruce. Bruce thinks what's going on right now is actually real. And then he keeps going with it. And you're like, yeah, all right, we're still rolling on the joke we were doing. He doesn't realize it's a joke. He just keeps on going.
I don't know, man. Murphy was good.
I love it. Listen, I enjoy it. It's stupid. It's stupid and ridiculous.
I would go so far.
But I like it.
I wouldn't go so far as to say Murphy was good, but Murphy at least is where you're like, oh, right, they used to make stuff like this. I forget.
Yeah, it's fun. It's just stupid, like, you know, early television dopiness, but it's good.
Right.
And this was also, this episode, this movie was a particularly good time for some Warner Brothers cross promotion because it was leaning into the campy style. And then they start making all the Warner Brothers cartoon references. And if I remember correctly, 1990 was the year when everyone got a Tasmanian devil tattoo, and like Space Jam was around about that time, and the Looney Tunes were making a big comeback. So yeah, good cross promotion. I loved all the cartoon references.
That's called This Is Easy to Clear with Legal.
And great Foley work.
Would you like a Bugs Bunny oversized T-shirt where he's wearing a dope sag and a baseball cap off backward?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the Foley work, cartoon style Foley work when they're battling at that costume party. And you know, God is my witness, I didn't know that Richard Belzer was on this show.
Man, when but first we skipped over Timothy Stack coming in.
Tell us more.
Timothy Stack is the what was his role again? He's interviewing somebody or something.
Huh?
Timothy's
went over my head.
No, you didn't see him in the first episode.
Oh,
Timothy
right,
Stack?
he is there. You're right.
Yeah,
who's Timothy Stack?
He's King of the Beach or whatever it's called.
Son of the Beach.
Son of the Beach.
The Howard Stern produced show that was on like Comedy Central a long time ago.
Yes.
I didn't watch that, but cool.
You'd recognize. Trust. He's one of those dudes. You see that face, and you're like, "That's that dude." He's awesome in it. And then, but yeah, when Bell shows up, just I don't know what they told him and why he's here. I want to know that story. How did this come about?
Yeah, because it's not like Belzer's neither on the way up or the way down. He's just always kind of been Belzer, you know? Yeah. I mean, he might have peaked when Hulk Hogan beat him up or whatever, but this is like, wow, this guy's going to be, what was it, Homicide, Life on the Streets or whatever that he follows this up with?
Well, he does, and that's the switch, right? Because he's playing detectives and cops for a million years. Then he gets Homicide, Life on the Street, and he becomes Munch. And once he becomes Munch, he never stops being Munch after that.
Like
and we any time, a lot of
day or night.
A lot of people forget he was like a late night fill-in for Johnny Carson and started in the world of comedy.
Which is amazing since he is not funny at all.
No, I don't think so either. I've just like, that's one I'm like, okay. I mean,
this is when comedians didn't have to be funny. I can't tell you how many times I've thought that to myself as I'm watching like people who are, you know, like in the bedrock of comedy in the 80s and late 70s, where you're just like, oh, you just had to be around. You didn't. Yeah, I'm thinking be good.
These are guys that could afford bus tickets on a regular basis, so they could do New York and L.A. until somebody just finally gave him something. Yeah. Howie Mandel's story that he came to L.A. to sell souvenirs and got discovered to do comedy is the most infuriating thing I've ever heard. So I won't talk about that.
Howie Mandel's actually funny though. Like
but it's an infuriating story. He makes it sound like, oh, and I bumped into this guy and he said, hey, why don't you be in this movie? And I was like, well, I got nothing else to do. That's what it's bad for those of us whose dreams have all been shattered along the way.
Call that pulling a Kramer.
These pretzels are making me thirsty.
Indeed.
Now, the Halloween costume, it's not Halloween. It's just a costume ball, some kind of fundraiser. It's at the Infantino Hotel. Did I already mention that?
It was Carmine Infantino, right?
So can I tell you guys a very funny story about Alex Desert, however you pronounce his name?
Are you talking about the guy from Becker?
Yes, the guy on Becker and the guy on The Flash. So here's a bit of trivia. Was indirectly referenced in the Greg the Bunny 2002 episode Jimmy Drives Gil Crazy, when Gil refers to a hardworking employee on the set of Donnie and Marie who eventually became the black guy on Becker.
That's a great reference.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I love that show.
So funny. And I mean, that guy's done a ton of stuff. He's in Swingers. He's in High Fidelity.
In everything. Yeah.
He's in. He's in a lot of good stuff.
He's a '90s classic for sure.
Yeah.
Who? Alex Desert?
Yeah.
Oh, I only know him from two projects.
Oh,
Well, but you do know that there are two movies that are called Swingers and High Fidelity, right?
I've probably seen both of them and didn't realize he was in. I got to go rewatch them now.
Yeah, and he's good in both. He's a solid. I think he's a very solid, reliable actor. You're gonna.
At the time, it's been a long time since I've seen Swingers, but at the time, I only had enough space, I guess, to take in Vaughn and Favreau, and then the rest I couldn't tell you who they were. I need to revisit it.
That's true.
High Fidelity is also the last time they can get away with the bit where Jack Black is in it, and he keeps saying he wants to sing something, and no one will let him. And by the end of the movie, he sings, and everybody's like, "Wow!" The last one.
Will Ferrell tried it.
Yeah. Well.
No, but I mean Jack Black himself. Like,
I got you. Because now we know Tenacious D and everything.
Right.
Yeah, I got you.
Black is Jack Black.
You can't pull that trick twice.
Not with
something
him.
that still amazes me, man, is how someone with a physique so similar to mine in many ways seems to have so much more energy than I do. I'm starting to think he may use substances I don't.
Oh, do you? Wow, what a surprise!
I could have been a Jack Black did you? Man, this is turning into Jack Black. I saw this commercial for Pitfall. Have you ever seen
Yeah, and he's in it as a kid.
Yeah, man, this guy, another one. He just shows up at Hollywood. They're like, "Hey, why don't we put you in a commercial and then make you famous?" You ever heard of School of Rock?
And that is not the Jack Black story. Jack Black's parents were like on him. Like they got him representation when he was little, like the whole deal. Like he's not somebody who was just like not working hard. He had a job.
That whole thing about comedy that we mentioned before, there was also a long stretch where I thought being born or in or around LA is like 70% of the battle. Just being there, like growing up in that environment with the parents that are diehards and crap like that. Like just being there, I always felt like you can't, man, should I throw shade at specific people?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. You can't tell me that if Adam Carolla was born in Milwaukee that we would know him.
It's less likely. It's less likely.
He seems kind of apathetic about moving around and stuff. Like I feel like he's the guy who's going to more or less die within 30 miles of where he was born. So he just happened to be lucky that he was born where he could call in a radio show and that would lead to a job.
Well, I mean, and that is, I mean, Jimmy is who found him. I mean,
yeah. But the costume thing, man, I want to talk about this some more because this is something you don't see as much now, but I felt like it really was at home in the era of like the 70s and 80s comic book stuff, which wasn't dealt with real seriously, where someone dresses up in a costume as the Flash that looks nothing like the Flash's costume, but some people think it looks exactly like him. Like they have 4 or 5 Flashes at the costume ball, and none of them look anything like the Flash.
Right.
But people seem to go with it. If you're just in red colors and call yourself the Flash.
Well, I mean, this goes to the same thing where there's these tropes on TV that they did forever, and that's one of them. The other one is the thing where where it just happened forever, where guy is in a meeting with his boss, and he pitches something, and the big old boss is like, "Do you think that's a good idea?" And then the guy's like, "Well, yeah, I think it is pretty good." And then the boss is like, "So do I." But why even have any of that?
Yeah,
it's one of those things. We know that we've been doing this for 50 years, but we've got to burn time. So let's just do the same thing we've been doing forever. It's the Bruce Valanche, where I am going to say the exact same jokes for 45 years, 50 years, and everyone's going to keep paying me, even though I haven't written a new joke, and at least since Nixon was in office.
Oh, you're talking about the Amazing Jonathan.
Well, that too. That too.
But when we get to the court, let's move into the second half because there's a couple interesting things here to say.
Oh my God, let's get closer to the end than that. It's 9:40.
Okay, well, we'll talk about the court. The main thing I want to mention here is, first off, Trickster coming to court in the full costume, and I thought, okay, this is just like Batman 66. We're just supposed to roll with it that he shows up for court in the full costume. But I like it that his what I assume is his court-appointed attorney, because they don't get along very well. Right. She calls him out on it, and I thought that was a little a little more self-aware than I expected this show to be at that point. But I give him credit for that.
You got to admit, what we're doing right now is pretty stupid, right? Yeah.
And I want to keep talking a little bit about how I think this show quietly influenced Batman the Animated Series, because in a lot of ways, prank number 2, this court reporter that busts him out and kind of becomes his devoted sidekick that he mistreats and abuses and leaves her out. This is 3 years, I think, before Harley Quinn ever was a thing. And she showed up, of course, first in Batman the Animated Series. This is like a little proto Harley Quinn, if you ask me, this prank. Some similarities there.
Yeah, a lot of the same.
And man, was this filmed before Scent of a Woman and A Few Good Men? Because we have a powerful courtroom scene here that I'm thinking, whoa, the Scent of a Woman, you're out of order. This whole court's out of order. That's straight from Mark Hamill. What is that?
That's And Justice for All.
Oh, I'm thinking if I was half the man I used to be, I'd take a flamethrower to this place. That's what I'm thinking about. That was Scent of a Woman. Yes. Al Pacino. Okay. And then You Can't Handle the Truth. All that, Mark Hamill has given them all the material they need to inspire those performances. Riveting courtroom drama.
You
Way
heard
better
it here.
Than Trial of the Incredible Hulk.
Disagree.
This as a movie, when I checked, as a movie, this is 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, so that's pretty good, man.
Now that's not like a critic thing, is it? That's got to be the user, right?
It's just audience, but who really matters more?
That's true.
There's no critic reviews. No critics reviewed this movie, strangely enough.
That is weird.
I think we should be getting on Rotten Tomatoes right now on account.
Yes. Because have them try to figure out what a Robin rating is, whether it's fresh or not.
They're like, is that a good thing? They've got to have like a key to figure out exactly what's going on.
If this tomato meter wasn't ridiculous enough, now I got to add Robin to the tomato meter.
The hell is this? Now, before we do get to that Robin rating, we do have to ask ourselves one very important question. It is how this movie/television show relates back to Sylvester Stallone.
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement. Mm-hmm. He started out as a stunt driver on the Dukes of Hazzard, which is like learning how to have sex by participating in an orgy. His name is John Borland, and he's a stunt man. He's worked with Van Damme, Rowdy Roddy Piper, and when Stallone wanted to make the movie Demolition Man, John Borland answered the stunt man's call. Because John Borland always answered the call. Like when the A-Team called because they needed someone to get shot by a cabbage cannon, he didn't say, no, thank you, that sounds stupid. He asked how many cabbages and what's the PSI on that bad boy. And when the good folks who made Action Jackson called, John Borland answered the phone and said simply and plainly, of course I'll work on your movie. I'm John Borland, by God. He stopped working in 2000 when he worked on the TV movie Hazard in Hollywood, which is exactly what you think it is. Haven't seen it. I'm sure it's awesome. But what happened to John Borland? Why haven't we seen him since 2000? Some people say that he got hurt and was never able to get back on that stunt horse. Others say that he was promoted to the VP of Facilities at the Universal lot in Los Angeles, California. Not me, of course. I have my own theory that John Borland was working on set one morning and a man in a dark suit pulled him aside and asked if he wanted to become what the man in the dark suit described as a government man. John Borland, being a patriot, didn't even have to think about it. He was in. John Borland's role? Used the skills he learned as a stuntman to cause chaos in countries that don't have the same values as the United States. Cause enough confusion that when the Black Ops team land, they'll arrive virtually unnoticed. It was hard work, but Borland enjoyed the challenge. The man in the dark suit, Borland, would eventually be known to him as Darius. And Darius's motivations would sometimes seem strange to Borland, like in 2015 when Darius asked Borland to strangle a small child. Borland refused, and Darius left Borland for dead behind enemy lines. Borland, outmanned and outgunned, had to rely on guile and chicanery and barely made his way out. Bruised and bloody, Borland made his way back to the States, hell-bent on revenge. He would track down Darius, learn his every move, and just when it looked like revenge would finally be Borland's, John Borland learned there was never actually a Darius in the first place. He was in John Borland's head the whole time.
Ooh.
And there you have it, Ancient Peers. This week's Stallone connection is John Borland. I like the nightlife. I like the boogie. Thank you. I'm Sean Kovacs. Thank you.
Oh man, Stallone getting into all matters of our lives here, man. New Panthers kicker's last name is Sly, for heaven's sake. So
I know.
Think about it. Well, on Hero Movie Podcast, as we had alluded to, we have our own patented Robin rating system. If you'd like to check that out, head on over to Facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. It's right there at the top of the screen. And why don't you throw us a like while you're there, Bruce, where does the Flash 2, whatever the subtitle of this bad boy is, fall in the Robin rating system for you?
The Trickster's Revenge or Revenge of the Trickster. This is way better than I would have thought, and I already thought it was going to be pretty good. I was shocked at just how much this seems to influence stuff that came later. I really am. I would have liked it better if Megan, just one of the guys, if she had actually had some Stockholm syndrome and she's who rescued him from the courtroom and willingly became Prank the second time around. That would have been interesting. We saw her personality changing when she came back, but they went a different direction with that. But overall, just how much I see this influencing stuff that came later, and just thinking in 1990 was a time when this is where this belongs, but it's also good to move things forward. This fits in with what Burton was doing in 89. It predates what Schumacher would do a few years later. This is like very solid Tim Drake. I can't put it all the way up there for a few little reasons here and there, but it's one I really want people to see if they haven't seen it. Mark Hamill is so great here, knowing that this was a big part of what led to him being cast as the Joker a few years later for the animated series. I think this, even if you don't watch the pilot, don't watch any other episodes, just pair these two together, episode 12 and 22, if you're not lucky enough to have the VHS version, and enjoy an hour and a half of your day.
Yeah. Sean?
This show is awful. It's so bad. It is ridiculous. It is theater shot on film. Mm-hmm. But with all that being said, it's the great kind of awful. Keep in mind when Bruce says that he thinks it's great, keep in mind who you're listening to. It's Bruce.
That is Bruce Leslie, everyone.
Bruce loves stuff like this, as do I. And It is the good. It is the great kind of bad. It's the reason. I know I say this all the time, but it's the reason why we have a podcast. It's the reason why I am on this podcast, is for stuff like this. For me, it's a Tim Drake as well. It is terrible. You will fall asleep while watching it. It doesn't matter. It's great.
Yeah, it's Tim Drake's all around. It's just so much fun, and yes, it's bad. But it is that type of bad that, like, you can't wait to see what's coming around the next corner, because it's like, what else? There's some moments in it that are just like, what scene are these people in? What television show are these people in? Because this is way different than everything else that's been going on in this episode so far. And then they're just back on track as they normally were. It doesn't really matter. It's all over the place and super strange, but it's never... I don't want to say it's never not boring, because sometimes it is. But it's just, like you said, it's that good enough bad for you, man. So check that out.
I mean, it is super boring. It gets so boring at times, especially when they're trying to do the character development on the show with stuff that you've seen a million times already. Like, that's just so boring.
Just talking about this movie and this movie only, I wasn't bored. I was surprised. I usually get bored for stretches on these TV things from a bygone era. But I
fell asleep like 4 times watching it. But
really?
Yeah.
I can't believe I just thought about this.
I'm the kind of guy, not other people would really care, maybe. But I'm like the type of guy, when I see something where it's like, well, this clearly is just like a parody or ripoff of something else, then you realize that something else came after this. I get a little bit of a thrill from that, and I saw a lot of that in here.
Yeah. No, that's certainly there. And I don't know, it's a lot more fun than I expected it to be, especially given what it is and all the shortcomings that it has.
This is the
Fun
Velvet
right.
Underground of superhero TV.
Exactly.
Like the Velvet Underground didn't sell a lot of records, but everyone who bought one started a band and got a record deal and changed the world. And that's kind of what this is. Like, not a lot of people saw this, but you sure saw the stuff that was influenced by this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Very nice. Well, next week we are going back in time a little bit, but not quite as far back as the early 90s. We're going in the 2000s here with Cowboys and Aliens. Daniel Craig, Harrison Ford, and what's her face there? I forget.
An alien.
And aliens and stuff. And maybe,
probably Sigourney Weaver. I don't know.
Maybe a cowboy or two. I don't know. So Cowboys and Aliens, that'll be coming up next week. In the meantime, Bruce, where might we find more of your new stuff on the internet?
Just keep your ear to the ground over at Chubby Wizard. We had a nice, fun talk about what exactly Marvel 1000 is. It's a comic. Marvel released a comic called Marvel 1000, but there was never a Marvel 999. In fact, I think there was like Marvel 1 and 2, and then nothing, and then Marvel 1000. So it's an interesting story. Go check it out.
That seems like unconventional numbering. Sean?
Go to talk to me at Sean Kovacs 4 on Twitter. I do I have a running bit going on, where it's just basically a virtual yard sale.
Good finds, man. I'm impressed with those finds.
There's some treasures in there.
For sure.
Just check it out. I don't even want to spoil it. Go check it out. Link for that is within the description as well. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to say this at the top of the show. We did review the pilot, and I have linked the pilot to the pilot episode within the show notes of this episode. So if you want to get to that directly, hit on that little thing. Send you right there. There you go.
Good job by you.
So yeah, that's next week, everybody. We are going to be talking about what do we say it was again? I've totally forgotten already.
Cowboys and Aliens.
Cowboys and Aliens. That's how memorable that is. We'll see what happens next week.
And literally, we're gonna have to write stuff down because we're gonna forget what was in it as we're watching it. It's that forgettable.
You have
now, was
to
Han
remember.
Solo the cowboy or the alien?
Yes, I believe the answer is that yes to both of those. But we'll find out next week.
Okay.
We'll cover all of
the alien.
Yes, we'll cover all of that next week. Until then, for Sean Kovacs, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Amy.